Hi, today's video I'm going to address subjects into the narrative and put some questions out there and hopefully make a few people think. I'm tackling a subject today I'm very nervous about putting out. So if you're watching this, I obviously did, but I will tell you honestly, I am having a hard time considering releasing this and actually saying this because the backlash is so heavy nowadays. Now, if for anybody that speaks out against the narrative, our ability to have free speech is gone. Well, yeah, it is gone because I do not feel free speech means you should not feel threatened to speak your opinion, your voice, your knowledge. That's free speech. Doesn't mean that anybody has to agree with you, but your ability to actually be able to say it. And now, yes, I do not expect the police force to come to my door and arrest me for free speech, for what I say, but I will receive a massive social backlashing. Viewers who agree with me may actually be scared to hit the like button or subscribe to my channel for fear that their friends or family might see what they liked, for the fear that people will be afraid to share the video because of fear of their own channels being blocked or censored or whatever, because that's the other thing that'll happen is I might get censored. I might release this and social media platforms will decide that it cannot be out there. And so they'll delete it. And when that is happening, that means our freedom is gone. We have lost our freedom due to intimidation and censorship. So agree with me or not, my right to speak should be protected. And I don't mean that me as in me. I mean that me as in everybody. Okay? And again, all right, so subscribe to my channel. If you dare, subscribe to my channel, like this video, and please share it. So one of the things I'm going to talk about today, I'm going to focus this video around the subject of abortion, pro-choice, all of that stuff. Okay, this is about the narrative. So this is what, let me back up for a second. I'm talking about the narrative. We are being controlled by the narrative that is being put out. All right, now how this happens is our censorship, for one, our media floods us. Media being our newspapers, our social media, our news on the TV, our news in an alternative sources, like all that information that is being pumped out to us everywhere we turn. Like there is a screen everywhere we go. And that narrative that is constantly put out has a few real good themes to it. One, its narrative is to keep us in fear. They keep us in fear for two reasons. One, if we are in fear, we are less likely to challenge. We are more likely to obey. And the second reason is if they keep us in fear, we will react. They can control how we react to each other. So then through fear, they will turn us against each other so that we become policing each other, which is actually exactly what I was just talking about on the comments that will probably show up on this video, right? So anyhow, I'm addressing this portion of the narrative, the abortion subject. Please, 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 can we drop this stupid subject, okay? I know everybody has an opinion. It's about women's right to choose. It's about pro-life. Is this a fetus? Does the fetus have rights? All this stuff, okay? That is not the actual issue. The actual issue around abortion is, as a society, do we choose to make it acceptable for a person to get medical, societal support and help in dealing with pregnancy and the whole transition on becoming a mother? Okay? Or do we outlaw it and delegate it back to the dark corners of our society, into mystical, back alley abortions with coat hangers, and we risk death, and herbs that damage the body as they abort the fetus? Okay, abortion is not going away. This has been part of our society forever. All right, for all you biblical people that say that the Bible says that abortion is bad, why do you think they said it? They said it because it was happening. Okay, this is not new. It's been happening forever. And us as a society, okay, we live in I live in the first world, in North America. I live in actually Western Canada, and what we have to realize is that what makes our country great is our freedoms and respect for each other. And we each have a freedom to make our own decisions, to worship as we please, that those are all part of our freedoms, okay? If you don't know me yet, I don't actually pre-record and do a whole lot of thinking and plotting out of these videos. And I don't do a lot of editing afterwards. So when you see me stumble and lose track and stuff of what I'm saying, it's because it's just coming through me. It's coming either being directed from my guides, or it's coming from the passion within me. So that's why sometimes I get a little sidetracked. These are not factual videos. These are opinion videos. This is how I see the world and where our problems are. And I am putting them out there to help others question. I'm not asking you to agree with me. I'm asking you to stop and think, step out of a controlled narrative, and question everything. That's my goal. All right. So anyhow, abortion has been around forever. The ability to get pregnant falls completely on women. We are the ones that carry the child in our body. That child is completely reliant on the female body for most of its gestation. Okay? And therefore, any decision as to care of that body falls on the woman. Now, hopefully, we have wonderful men, which I've been blessed to have in my life, and most men I know are like this. Even most men who may not be acting as providers, protectors, and really people who recognize and see the beauty of the female, even people who don't appear that way, if you get past their fears and their struggles that are holding them back, underneath, most men feel that way. That's the divine masculine energy. It wants to give. It wants to nurture. I shouldn't say nurture, that's more female, but it wants to give and take care and protect and provide for the feminine energy. Okay? So again, this is back to biology. It is a female body ownership. All right, so that's who it affects, biological females. I don't want to make this about the LGBTQ. I'll do other videos about that another time. So biological females, that's who this is pertaining to. That is the only people that should be making this decision, honestly, because it is only them that it affects. All right, and I say that, it's not only them that it affects, but it is the responsibility. Okay. Men certainly have rights, and we need to acknowledge that they have rights. And that is a conversation, is the father's rights. But again, in the end, it is the female biology that carries it and has the weight of it. All right. Now, there are a lot of reasons why women decide to do abortions. All right. What gets highlighted in this narrative is the woman that uses abortion as a form of birth control, which, I'm sorry, I don't have the statistic on this, but I am pretty darn sure that's an extreme minority of women, and those women need mental help. I'm sorry, I'll say it. They need mental help. They need mental, spiritual, emotional help. Because anybody who decides that their form of birth control is abortion has big problems in their head. Big, big problems. Okay? So let's just take that out of the narrative. Because now that's a mental health issue. So now the next category are women that are afraid. That's what it leaves us with. Women who are afraid. For one reason or another, they have fear of having this child. Now, they can have fear because of genetic history. So they don't want to pass on, they're fearful of passing on mental illness or genetic disease or disease within themselves. You know, like maybe somebody has AIDS, the HIV virus, and they don't want to take the risk of carrying that child to term because the trauma that's involved with an HIV baby is freaking huge. That's a huge subject. I'm not going to go into it, but that's an example. Okay, someone who grew up with with a mental ill parent that shows a history in the family of mental illness may decide to abort their baby because they really, it was an accident they got pregnant. They've tried not to get pregnant, but accidents happen. So they got pregnant. And the idea of taking the risk of having and bringing a child into the world that has that kind of mental illness is more than they can deal with. Okay, and that can be the same for physical as well, right? It can be, so it's a fear of what genetics is going to be passed on. That's a fear. Another reason that they might decide to abort the baby is because they don't have the confidence and in their own resources to take care of themselves, let alone take on the responsibility of another life. And once that baby's out of your body, it's a totally different game. And that's the choice. They're not making the choice of whether they're carrying it to term. They're making the choice of carrying that child in life. That's a big part of that decision. So, and that's a huge decision because, again, most men are going to want to be there. But our society does not, we can't afford, it doesn't get enforced enough. And really, how can it? That's a whole other subject I don't want to go down to in this conversation. But the fact is that when women are facing pregnancy, even when they're in stable relationships, they are still facing their ability to be responsible for another life. And that's a scary thought. All right, so that's another reason why women will do abortions. Another reason is how the pregnancy came to be. With a pregnancy came to be from abuse, rape, well, those two, that I don't need to say more. They can't face bringing that into the life, bringing that into the world. So instead of making these women criminals and pushing them into the shadows of our society and pushing them into dangerous situations with illegal medical procedures, maybe herbal concoctions or pharmaceutical concoctions or whatever that force the body into abortion, instead of doing that, why don't, instead of making abortions illegal, why don't we, or even even having this conversation. This is where I don't even understand why we have this conversation. Because if you really want to reduce abortion, it's not by outlawing it. If you want to reduce the amount of abortions that are happening, then we need to invest in supporting the process, supporting parents in raising their children so that the burden of having children isn't as heavy. We need to support the family unit so that it makes more sense. So there's less stress on families and it makes sense for a primary caregiver of that child to be a parent. We need to invest in that. We need to invest in counseling and support and education on how to be good parents, how to go through the whole process. This whole, even birth coaching. Do you know you have to pay for that? Why is that not covered under medical? Right? All of our medical options of how to give birth should be covered. Our education on what happens should be covered. But they're not. And this whole topic is not focusing on that. Okay? Anybody who is considering an abortion needs a lot of counseling, a lot of education, and a lot of support. Not a rejection, but an actual caring, a nurturing, a loving situation, an acceptance, okay, in the decision that they have to make. And let's close this subject. You personally, your decisions, just like my decision of whether I would or I wouldn't, doesn't matter. That's for me to make and for me to share with those it impacts, which is not the general public, and it certainly is not our politicians. Okay? Our narrative of fighting over our morals around this is being shifted into a religious war, and religion against atheism war, and a human rights war, and all of this, when none of that makes any sense. There doesn't need to be an argument. I honestly don't think that anybody could, I can't imagine why anybody would disagree on investing in counseling, mental health, resource support for women who find themselves pregnant, and adding extra support in for women who are so terrified of having that pregnancy full term and raising a child that they are considering an abortion, that we need to put extra resources into supporting them on making that choice and what's right for them. That is how we're going to reduce abortions in this country. Okay? We also need to look at these children that end up being abandoned at birth and going into foster care and all of that situation. Let's put more resources into that. If we took the amount of money that is put into controlling the narrative and the political debates and the lobbying protesters on both sides of this issue, if we took all that money and put it into foster care and nurturing and caring for our children, wow, we would solve so many problems. But instead we wasted over an argument that really, I don't believe should even be in a conversation, let alone in our politics, let alone deciding our vote. Now I'm going to dive into this, like the extremities. So many people don't actually understand why they're like me in the middle. They have their opinion, but they believe the rights. The majority of people, I think, respect another person's choice to how that they have the right to decide how they live their lives. Okay? Most people agree with that. Now, the narrative that gets put out there is focusing not on the conversation in the middle of how to address and reduce the issue of abortion, which is really what the abortion thing, how do we reduce it? Because it isn't a problem we're just going to outlaw it and it's going to be gone. No, right? It's a narrative of how are we going to reduce abortion. That's the conversation we should be having. But instead, the narrative is got two extremes. Okay? The well-known extreme is the pro-life. And this always makes me think of Monty Python's movie, that song that they do, Every Seed Counts. Okay, those of you who know what it will be laughing right now, you can hear it in your head because it's unforgettable. If you haven't and you want a little humor, and especially if you're kind of twisted because Monty Python is, go check it out. Every seed counts, right? It's a whole whatever. Anyhow, it makes me laugh. Anyhow, that's the narrative, is that it's so extreme that every seed counts. Can't waste a sperm, right? There's that extreme, and then it dials back from there, and it goes from every seed counts down to against birth control. They don't believe that we should be allowed to have birth control, which again is a ridiculous extremity conversation because women have been using birth control throughout all of history. Okay, the difference in what the argument actually is around birth control is, once again, are we going to outlaw and push it into the shadows of our society, or are we going to make it a safe place for a conversation and support a person? Okay, so there's that. There's the anti-birth control, and then we get a little bit more, as to whether or not to have an abortion, and then at what weeks to have the abortion. Okay, so that's all that far right side. And this is what, women's rights get upset, because when you're talking about a politician making the choice of what happens to my body, my back goes up. Like, screw you. Nobody's making that decision for me. All right? That's no. So that's the extreme there. And of course, it's going to bring out huge emotions because it affects me personally. It affects my daughters. It affects my sons. It affects my entire world. That extremity, I don't want to see it. I do not want to see that extreme being the norm in anywhere in this world. Okay? But then on the other side of the far left, you people are freaking nuts that are out there. I'm sorry, but here's to how extreme. The extremity on the left, and this was, I actually Googled this because it was so ludicrous. I could not believe I was actually hearing this. Okay, so I Googled it, and I can't remember because this was a while back that I heard this, and I did Google it, and it was on a politician radar, in like Virginia or West Virginia or something like that. Some of the states. I don't know the states, but something like that. And what was being presented forward as an actual, like, they were debating whether this should go through or not. Like, they were actually presenting this as an option in our society to make legal. Okay, abortion being the killing of a 3-day-old baby. That's the extreme left. Killing a fetus within 3 days of birth was considered an abortion and should be legal. No, I think anybody reasonable with brain power will say no. Okay, wow. I'm gonna leave it there because wow. Okay, so that was the extreme there, and then we dial it back, and then it's like, 9-month abortion, and then 8 months, 7 months, and it goes down and down and down into when time frame of these abortions. Okay, and then and there's also in that side is, when should an abortion be allowed? That's all the middle grounds, what in the middle. But that's the extreme. 3 days old, every seed counts. Hello. That's our politics narrative that is going out there, and that is what it's based on, is these extremities that are literally ludicrous. Right? Like, no, let's bring it into let's get rid of this narrative and actually have discussion. So anyhow, that's my rant on abortion. If you're watching this, I had the guts to put it out there. I don't know whether I will because it makes me very nervous. Um, I am a sensitive person, so when people say mean things to me, it does hurt. I do read all the comments, and I do, yeah, I don't want to hear. I'm sorry. If you don't agree with me, then don't agree with me and don't subscribe to my channel, don't follow me, block me. I don't care. But please be kind. And whilst I'm asking, I'm just sharing my view of the big topics in this world, and that we need to really wake up and see the narrative that is dividing us. And the reason why that narrative is dividing us is to pit us against each other so that we are not paying attention to what's really going on at the higher levels of who's manipulating and controlling this world. The people need to rise up and take back our power, because our world should be run from the people up, not the top down. Right? And it starts with the narrative. That's where you need to look at what is the narrative, what are they driving, what's behind it, and let's move into the point of discussion. You cannot have peace, you cannot have unity, you cannot have love without communication. Is the cornerstone of everything, is communication. And communication means that we are discussing, having conversations. We are listening twice as much as we are speaking. Okay, and I know in this video that I spoke all the way through it and I didn't listen to anybody, but I will tell you, I consume a lot of information. I listen and I read a lot. So, and then I put out. Anyhow, love you all. Thank you for listening to my video. Please like this video, subscribe, share it if you feel it's worthy. Love you all.